right after theater school, I got hired to do a play at one of the major theaters in Vancouver, the Arts Club, directed by Larry Lillo, who's a great director. It had a great cast, one of whom was my the head of my drama school, and it was just like a studded cast, and me, and I was the lead. So I kind of psyched myself out. And then one day the director said, "Do we have a coffee?" So we had a coffee. He said, "Listen, I hired you because I thought you can do this. You haven't shown me that. We're having a run through today. If you don't show me something, I'm going to have to recast." Hi, this is Colin Mochrie from Whose Line Is It Anyway? And this is Famous with Jacy Don Valeras. Pants are off tonight.
Colin Mochrie, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it is such an honor. You and I actually met at an event honoring Sharon Lois and Brown. You were hosting the event. I was a producer on the event. There was a lot of chaos backstage, and I didn't get the opportunity to really get to know you that night. So I wanted to have the chance to talk to you about your life and career. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
You are in for a treat. Or not. We'll see how it goes.
Here's the thing I do remember. I remember that our dressing rooms were close by backstage, and I was sharing a dressing room with Jane Eastwood, which was just,
Amazing.
absolutely amazing. You were down the hall sharing a dressing room with your wife, Deb McGrath, who is just so accomplished in acting and comedy and all of the things that she's done. And I remember coming out of my dressing room and you were standing in the hallway and you said something like, "Who's in charge of the dressing rooms here? I had a request for some M&Ms or something in here, and whoever was in charge didn't do it." And I thought, oh my goodness, I've let down like one of my comedy heroes because that was my job. And then you clearly were joking.
Yeah, first of all, Smarties over M&Ms always.
Okay.
So that was a dead giveaway.
True. Being in the States, we have the argument. I have it with Sharon all the time, Smarties or M&Ms. So I'll let you win on that one.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I want to talk a little bit about your life and your career. You were born in Scotland, grew up in Canada on the West Coast. What were you like as a kid? Were you a funny kid, or was that something that kind of developed later on?
I was very quiet. I was very shy. I was a bit of a bookworm. My social activity would be going to the library on Monday, getting like 7 books, and then reading them, and then going back the following Monday and getting new ones. So I don't know if I was particularly funny. When I From fairly young, I started watching a lot of. I feel like I was watching television 24 hours a day, but I don't think I was, but it seemed like it. But I was big into movies, old comedies from, The Silence from Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin to Bob Hope and Bing Crosby to whoever. Um, and then I was a big Cary Grant fan. I really got into old movies and pirate movies and westerns. So that was kind of my life. And then when I got into high school, my plan was I was going to be a marine biologist. And I
Okay.
think mostly it was because I liked the show Flipper that had a dolphin. I don't think there was any deep-seated hoping to make the world better through finding things to do with the ocean. But I was in high school, and as I said, I was very shy, and a friend dared me to try out for the school play. And I did, and I got it. And then I got my first laugh. And that was pretty much the end of science for me, of everything else. Then it became, this is what I want all the time now.
Who were your heroes at that point? Were there people that you were looking at that were doing comedy at that point when you were in high school?
Um, at that point, let's see, SCTV had started, Monty Python. So those two groups were very big influences. And as I said, anyone like Sid Caesar, Red Skelton. A lot of people are going to start having to use Google now because I'm going way back. Jack Benny, Bob Hope, all those people that would make me laugh. I would sort of study and go, okay, how are they doing it? And what is it, their character, or is it just their sort of weird viewpoint, or what is it? So, and I think that was sort of subconscious. I became a subconscious student of comedy.
Yeah. Was it around that time that you discovered improv? And did you quickly realize you had a knack for it, or was that something that came a little bit later?
It came later. It wasn't a thing. I mean, it's still shocking to me that I'm making a living doing something that didn't exist as a job when I was growing up. It wasn't until I was in theater school and a friend of mine was doing a play reading. And part of the evening was this thing called theater sports, which had been developed by this Englishman living in Calgary at the time. So I watched how these people would get something from the audience and then do these incredible scenes. And I thought, oh, this looks like it would be something, it would be fun to do. And a couple of months later, they established a theater sports league in Vancouver. I got involved, and then that was kind of the beginning of the end. Yeah, so that became a thing, and that's how I sort of became known in Vancouver as an improviser. It became like the big cult thing. We had there was a theater owner who was kind enough to give us the use of his theater after the real shows. So we 11 o'clock on Friday and Saturday we would do our shows. We started off by pulling people from the McDonald's next door to all of a sudden having lineups around the block. So it was a fun time.
You ended up at the Second City,
Hmm.
which I can imagine was just such an amazing education for what you love to do.
Yeah, Dan Aykroyd calls it a comedy college, and it really is. You have the show, the sketch show that you do, and then after the show we do an improv set, and the improv set was geared towards coming up with new material for the next show. So you're constantly trying to figure out new ways. Because in sketch there really is only like 7 ideas, so you're trying to find new ways of reinventing the wheel, of trying to. It's still about a group, some kind of group, whether it's alcoholics or whatever, getting together, and the weird characters, and of course you're working with different people too who have different viewpoints. So it was a way to learn how to work with different kinds of people, how to get your ideas out there. For me, one of the things I really concentrated on learning was talking to the audience because, as I said, I'm not very comfortable in that arena. So during the improv sets, I would say, hey, if you need anyone to sort of stall while you're getting costumes on, I'll go do that. So through that, I got to be a little more comfortable being able to just riff with audience members and have fun with them.
It's interesting what you said about there only being a certain amount of things that you can do because it's almost like music, right? Like music, there are only a certain amount of notes, only a certain amount of scales, and people are constantly trying to reinvent how a song is written. It
Hmm.
feels similar in a way to comedy.
It is. I mean, it's difficult. It's really hard, and it's really, as I said, it's very hard to get surprised in a way. You'll always laugh at like the true geniuses who somehow find a way to, no matter how outlandish or how weird the situation is, they still come at it from a human point of view where you can kind of relate. Like, oh, if I was in that situation, that's how I would react. So I love with improv especially. People are constantly trying different ways of doing it, different themes. I did a Dungeon and Dragons improv, something I know absolutely nothing about. So uh, our dungeon master was like an incredible nerd. Everything from Lord of the Rings to Marvel movies, but Dungeons and Dragons were his big thing. And he said, "Here's your thing. You're a cleric," and he had a list of all my stuff. And through the entire scene, all I did was try to fly. And he kept saying, "You can't fly. You can jump a foot." I'm always trying to break the rules, but it was a lot of fun to do. I love being in situations where I truly have no idea what's going on.
I was going to ask you about that because I feel like there would be so much fear. And do you thrive on the fear?
I thrive on, I have found throughout the years, I do my best work when I'm not totally comfortable in whatever we put ourselves in. Um, Brad Sherwood, who was on Who's Line with me, we've been touring now for 24 years, and we're constantly trying to find new ways to make ourselves uncomfortable. Things like we did a scene where there were 100 mouse traps on stage. We were blindfolded and barefoot, and we had to do a scene on it. Truly stupid, truly stupid.
Yeah.
And recently, we're doing our second act is a full-blown musical about the city that we're playing in. So we talk to the audience, find out as much as we can, and then we do a musical about it. And only one of us can sing, and it's not me. But
That's
I find it incredibly exciting to go out there and sing songs, something I don't think I'll ever feel comfortable with. And I think I'm starting to sound a little better, but I'm not Brad or Wayne Brady or those guys. But I find that so exciting. It really gets my blood pumping and my nerves throbbing.
that's insane, but in like the best way possible. Like
Exactly.
you talk about working with, Brad and Ryan Stiles and people that you've been in a situation with so many times where you have to think on the fly. How do you come up with ways to surprise each other? I mean, I imagine there's a little bit of conversation backstage. Here's what our plan is tonight. Here's what we're gonna do. Do you have little secrets up your sleeve all the time to keep it fresh with them?
No, it truly is. I think it works for all of us if we just truly walk out there with nothing. Because I think panic is a good thing to have in your arsenal. There's this theory that when you're in a dangerous situation or you're dying and your life flashes before your very eyes, there's this theory that what is happening is your brain is downloading every bit of information you've ever had in your life to see if there's something that will get you out of this particular thing. And I think that's the same thing with improv. You're kind of in this panic survival thing where you're in front of an audience who have paid good money to see a show. You do not have that show at this particular moment, and everyone's trying to work together to get it to happen. And I think I also, I was talking about being outside of my comfort zone, but also I do a show with a hypnotist where he hypnotizes audience members and then I improvise with them. And I think that's made me a better improviser because I can't rely on the Ryans and the Brads. These are people I don't know who don't have an improv background. So I really have to listen to them and try to figure out how the scene is going to work. And they come up with choices that are weirder than any improviser I've ever worked with. And they're so committed, which is great. So I think it's really helped me sort of focus in on how to be a better improviser.
What is one of the weirdest things you've had some random person come out with?
Oh, I'm, so I was a superhero. I'm looking for a new sidekick. And we get, this woman I'm about to interview, I said, so you want to be my sidekick? She said, yes. And I said, what is your superpower? And she said, delayed gratification. So right there, I'm going, okay, these people are hypnotized. So I also have to be careful that I'm not going to do something that is either traumatic or will bring out something that they don't want to truly have out there. So I went, okay, so say there was a bank robbery. What would you do? Well, I'd go up to the bank, but I wouldn't go in right away. It was like, okay. So things like that, where it's like when you hear it, you go, absolutely. That's exactly what delayed gratification woman would do. It makes total sense. But to get to that point, it's interesting how they do it.
That's hilarious. Okay, so on the opposite side of things, what do you do when you're having a bad day? You don't feel like it. Like, how do you get yourself in the zone? Do you have little tricks to bring yourself out of that kind of feeling?
No. I trust that it's all going to happen once I go out on stage. I'm at an age now This will shock you, where
Okay.
things hurt. A lot of things,
Same here. Same here.
constantly. So recently, I've been kind of riddled with arthritis. It's been in my spine and my knees. So it's kind of affected my mobility. But once I'm on stage, it's like it's all gone. And once again, I'm a happy-go-lucky 23-year-old. And then when the show's over, I'm back to the decrepit old man that I am. So that was always, I always had faith that once I was doing the show, everything else would go away. And I would say it would. I mean, I've never had to do a thing where, like, a dear friend had passed away or a family member and then had to do a show. But, like all humans, we do have bad days or things that just haven't gone well. But there's something about being in front of an audience that just takes it away.
Do you think it's easier or more difficult to be in front of a small audience?
Sometimes the bigger audience is difficult just because it's bigger and you're trying to reach everyone. I actually Brad and I and the hypnosis show, we usually do like 1,500 to 2,000 seat theaters, which is great. But we also every once in a while do like a little 500 or 400, and I like those because you can see all of the audience, you can actually talk to them, and you can hear all the suggestions. With a big crowd, you just hear noise, and every once in a while you just hear dildo, and you go, "That's the one thing I do not want," and that's the one thing you always hear clearly. So yeah, smaller audiences are much more manageable.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about Whose Line Is It Anyway? Because that show just, brought joy to millions and millions of people and still does. Was there a moment when you realized the impact that that show was really having on the general public?
Um, I think it was just a bunch of moments. I mean, when I first started the show, it was in Britain.
Mhm.
So we would fly over to Britain, spend 6 weeks there, shoot on the weekends, have the week to try to find something to do in London. So it was, and then I'd come back to Canada and nothing. And the show was really big in England, so we would get recognized a lot. And so it's like, oh, this is really cool. And then I come back to Canada to nothing. And then when Drew got involved, I think the first time I kind of realized we were doing these things called upfronts. It's when the show, all the new shows of the fall get together and have presentations, and then there's all these interviews. And we were doing it at Radio City Music Hall, and we were going underneath the bowels to get to the side of the stage we were supposed to go. And Diane Sawyer came up and said, "I love the show. You're so funny." And my first thought was, "You're married to Mike Nichols, who is like one of my heroes. Brilliant man, great improviser." And then from there, Sally Field came up to us, and it was just all these people who were from my viewing past and had meant so much to me. And then throughout that week, we had spent the week in New York, and just people coming up and saying how much they loved it. And we thought, oh, okay. And then, then they put us up against Friends and Survivor. And that kind of went down a little, but still, I'm always amazed at how we always get recognized, because we had we were up against such big competition when we were on television.
I mean, your fans are die-hard, rabid, like loyal fans. So I'm not surprised by that, because I think once you become a fan of that show, you can watch the same episode over and over and still find something about it that makes you laugh.
Yeah. And what I loved about it was everyone had their own fan club. Everybody was a favorite to a different group of people. So it was really nice that everybody got recognized, from not only us, but Linda Taylor and Laura Hall, the musicians. Yeah, no, it was a really good group. And it was one of those things that just seemed everything kind of happened at the right time it was meant to be.
Yeah. Your wife, as I mentioned earlier, Deb McGrath, is a very accomplished actress and comedian. What is life like with the two of you? Are you at home bouncing things off each other? Do you leave work at the workplace?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if I was on all the time, that would be a big strain on our marriage. In fact, Deb calls the guy on Whose Line the other. because it's really not who I am. And we've had when we first moved into this neighborhood, neighbors were kind of pissed off at me because I didn't wasn't the dancing monkey. It was just I'd be polite and say hi, but they were going, "Why is he?" And she had to explain that he's shy or whatever. But I mean, she's the outgoing one. She likes people. She's the storyteller. She's actually the funniest one in the family. And yeah, when we're together, we try writing together, and it's not. I mean, we have done it and it's gone well, but she is someone who will just throw a bunch of ideas, and I have to take time to sort of absorb it and go. And I do like the worst thing when somebody tells you a funny idea and you go, yeah, yeah, that's funny. There's no laughter, there's no chuckling. It's just you're immediately into comedy analysis. So we find like she does most of the writing, and then I'm really good at editing and sort of punching up here and there. But she's always like right now she's writing a book about her youth. She's writing a screenplay with a friend of hers. She wrote a small film that she and her daughter acted in about her father's um, going through Lewy body dementia, was connected to Parkinson's. So yeah, she's constant. I'm fairly lazy. I mean, my job is I go on a stage, people yell ideas at me, and then I do them. She's constantly coming up with stuff. She amazes me.
So, your life in Toronto, now that you've achieved a little bit more of a celebrity status in your own country, what is it like? Do you guys go to dinner and get recognized by fans? Are people coming up and asking for pictures with you, or do you get to keep that kind of low key life when you're in Toronto?
It's fairly, I mean, I do all the cooking at home. So that means I do all the shopping. So I'm constantly in stores and people will come up and say hi, but that's it. Uh, I live in New York. They just shout at me, wave and keep moving. But yeah, it's people tend to come up and say they enjoy the show or enjoy my work, but it's never overpowering. It's like I never get mobbed, which is nice. Every once in a while, I get a free coffee, so that's pretty good.
There are some perks.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the reasons I created this show about people who have become famous is because I'm fascinated by their lives and what they have to deal with, especially, living in Los Angeles or New York or something like that. So, there are perks, free coffees. That's
Mhm.
like the greatest perk of all time, if according to me. What are some of the difficult things about having notoriety or success or celebrity and getting recognized?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason we had lived in LA for a while, and it just wasn't. It became a life decision not to live there. It's weird to be in a city that's based on showbiz.
Yeah.
Felt like everybody had a script. And when we first lived there, Whose Line hadn't happened. Deb was doing a show. We moved down there. She was 7 months pregnant. She had her daughter down there, was back to work in 10 days. And even I couldn't work. I didn't have paper. So I was basically um, just a father, which was great. But I found myself getting caught up on why is that person getting work? And I thought, I'm not even up for this. I'm not in competition with them. Why am I getting so? So when we came back here to live, I felt that was a great decision. I find more, well, I was going to say more in the US, but I think it's happening here too. You tend to get pigeonholed. It's like, oh, I can't tell you how often I've worked with actors on movies or something. They said, I was kind of scared to work with you because I thought you were just going to go all over the place. It's like, well, but I was hired to do the script in this part, and I feel, the writer put some work into it, so maybe I should try to make it work. So there's, unlike Britain, where major movie stars do television, they do radio, they do stage, they seem to be allowed to do anything that they can do just to show their art. Whereas it's like, okay, you're an improviser, you're a television star. And I would like to see that sort of change. Celebrity wise, I mean, I'm very fortunate in a way because on Whose Line, we're just slightly exaggerated versions of ourselves. People who play serial killers and stuff, I think they have more of a problem because people have an immediate reaction to their character before the person.
Yeah.
But they always feel when they're talking to me, it feels like, oh, you're someone I really know well. And it's like, well, you don't. But they don't. They don't take advantage of it. So I've been really lucky. I have to say, the downside hasn't been too apparent in my life. Um, I mean, I think I just reached the perfect amount of fame where I do get a free coffee every once in a while, but it doesn't impact the rest of my life.
Right. Is there something that you wish you knew about the entertainment industry before you started that maybe would have given you either a leg up or has saved you from some bit of heartache or something like that?
The best thing I ever heard about this business was someone said, if you're going to be in show business, the first thing you have to remember is there is no justice. So you have to accept that without getting bitter. And it's just a fact. And it's true. I know so many incredibly talented people who, for whatever reason, just haven't had that chance. And then in this weird little thing that somehow end up getting a series that when I started, my daughter was 2 months old. When I finished, she was 33. So there is no justice. A lot of it is luck. A lot of it is when you get that chance to be able to be sure that you're ready for it, no matter when it comes. So I wish I'd known that. Also, life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. When I left theater school, almost everyone else in my class got work right away.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to grow into this because I wasn't really an ingenue. I wasn't really a character. So I wish I knew more about patience. Still working on things, but not putting that pressure on everything has to happen now.
Yeah. Do you have advice for your younger self that you would like to have given him when he was starting out?
Yeah. Um, I always fail on your own terms. I had a couple of experiences. There was right after theater school, I got hired to do a play at one of the major theaters in Vancouver, the Arts Club, directed by Larry Lillo, who's a great director. It had a great cast, one of whom was the head of my drama school, and it was just like a studded cast, and me, and I was the lead. So I kind of psyched myself out. And then one day the director said, "Do we have a coffee?" So we had a coffee. He said, "Listen, I hired you because I thought you can do this. You haven't shown me that. We're having a run through today. If you don't show me something, I'm going to have to recast." Okay. So then I slightly went insane. I think I did a little more than I should have, but it kept me the job. And then from then, um, everything was great. And the same thing happened with my first Who's Line. I psyched myself out and I didn't put myself out there. And again, I lucked out and I got a second chance at that. So I would tell myself, go for it. There's nothing worse than failing because you didn't put it all out there. You failed because you were scared or you psyched yourself out or whatever. Just go for it.
That's great advice. I want to ask you a couple little one-off questions here. So, what is something that always makes you laugh?
This is so sad, and I wish I had a better answer. People hurting themselves. Someone walking into a lamppost,
Yep.
someone hitting their head on something. It's sad. I wish I could say, "Oh, it's an old coward," a good witty turn of phrase, but no. Someone hurting themselves will make me laugh.
Social media is fantastic for that reason. Some of the
Exactly.
videos on there.
Love it.
What is one word that Brad would use to describe you?
Oh, I would say misanthropic. He always says, people think you're so nice, but they don't realize really what a horrible, dark human being you are. But we've worked together for 24 years, so he's found a way around it.
Exactly. That's hilarious. Okay, in the beginning of this interview, you said that you were thinking of something other than doing improv and comedy for your career. Is that the same career that you would still choose should you not be doing comedy and improv?
No, it truly is horrifying the lack of skills I have to do anything else. I really, and it's not being humble. I truly cannot do anything. I mean, I cook well, but restaurants just seem like a bad idea. And I'm not really comfortable with people, so that doesn't. I really, I really have nothing else.
Jobless. Jobless if
I
comedy
would be,
didn't
I
exist.
would have to be Deb's boy toy. She'd have to do all the work and keep it going.
That's great. Okay, what's your favorite improv game of all time?
Oh, I loved the greatest hits on Who's Line because it was a chance for Ryan and I to sort of banter and have fun and then hand it over to the amazing singers. So I got to be a participant and also a viewer. So that was consistently my favorite game.
Okay, and final question. If you could do improv with one of your heroes that you've never had the chance to work with,
Oh
that
God.
be
Oh, living or dead?
living or dead?
Well, Jonathan Winters, again, Google. He was the first person I ever saw. I thought, this guy's just making this up. He's just, there's a video on YouTube where he's on a Jack Parr show and Jack Parr gives him a stick. And then for 10 minutes, he just does all these various characters and it's amazing. So I would have loved to have worked with him.
Amazing. I have to ask you before I let you go about the tour with Brad because you guys are on the road all the time. What can fans expect from seeing this new version and the new dates of you guys out on the road?
Yeah, we like to say it's like a live version of Who's Line, but without the dead weight. And you know who I'm talking about. So there's games that would be familiar to Who's Line fans. We do a moving bodies and the sound effects, and then we're constantly coming up with new ways to use those seven ideas to come up. So we've recently come up with the musical idea I talked about. We also have a game where we bring up two audience members. One is Brad's Alexa, one is my Siri, and they help us get through some sort of difficulty. So that's turned into one of our favorite games.
That's amazing. I know you're doing dates all over the place, so I'm sure fans will be very excited to come and see you. Thank you so much for just being everything that I really hoped you would be. I've now had the chance to meet you a couple of times, and you're just such a lovely, wonderful human. So thank you for that.
Well, I really have nothing to be a dick about. I mean, look at my career. I still wake up and go, I can't believe they let me still do this. It's amazing. So thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you, and
And
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.